Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Britain's Hangout Hour, episode 65. I'm here with a returning guest, as a matter of fact, Josh from Red Fury Books. So, how you doing, man?
I'm great, man. Thanks for having me back. I'm impressed that you're at episode 65.
I
I mean,
know
that's crazy.
I'm kind of shocked. I didn't think I'd make it to 50 for a minute there, but once I joined YouTube, I'm like, oh, I got all these people I can talk to now. So,
Yeah, right.
yeah.
Well,
Um,
that's cool. Well, thanks for having me back.
Yeah, I mean, while I am I'm glad we had the conversation we had. We had some technical issues, so I'm like, well, I felt like enough time had passed, and I decided to have you back on. So, how are you doing,
Yeah, and
man?
hopefully I don't have technical issues. I already had to reboot my computer, so fingers crossed.
All right, but how are you doing, man? Like, what have you
I'm
been
I'm
up to?
great. I'm on spring break, so you said you had a long work week. This has been the opposite for me.
Oh yeah, I'm about to. Mine is this upcoming week, so
Okay, nice.
it's been fun. Um, yeah, you work at you're a music teacher, aren't you?
I am. Yeah, I teach high school orchestra. So
That's
yeah, we had
fun.
the week off.
Yeah, I saw you've been hanging out on your YouTube channel. You've been doing some stuff. You did Brian Lee Durfee's book with my good friend John Minton and
Yep.
some other people. I can't think of their names at the moment.
Yeah, we're buddy reading all three of them, and we're doing Lonesome Crown right now, the third book. And actually, Durfee's probably going to join us for the last chat, so that's going to be a lot of fun.
Oh, I heard that. Yeah, I've been wanting to get him on the show for a while, but yeah, just I haven't heard back from him.
Yeah,
But I hope that goes well. He's an interesting. He was actually one of the guys who really got me to start my YouTube channel because I'm like, well, if that guy can stand there on his little phone talking and just shooting a breeze about, but I have no
yeah.
excuse whatsoever.
No, I love how he just embraces that. He's not great with technology. He's not going to edit anything. He's just going to talk, and then he's going to post. And I love that rawness, and I think everybody kind of appreciates that about his channel.
I also saw you've been reading some more Dennis Lehane or Lehane if you're Irish.
Yeah,
Um,
I'm almost caught
so
up with him. I have one more to go, and
so
then
I wanted to
yeah,
talk to you a little bit about that because as much as I love Lehane, I don't feel he's covered enough on BookTube, and it makes me pretty sad. but I
yeah.
saw,
I agree. I think BookTube tends to, I don't know, at least our kind of little corner of BookTube. There's a lot of fantasy. There's
hmm
a little bit of science fiction. There's a little bit of historical fiction, but there's not much in the crime fiction.
I know.
So, I mean, Durfee's someone who talks crime fiction a lot.
hmm
Man carrying thing when he's not doing his skits, when he talks about books, he tends to read a lot of kind of old school crime fiction. But for the most part, there aren't that many of us that at least talk about it a whole lot.
Yeah, he read
Um,
Parker. I thought that was interesting.
yeah, yeah, right.
He read Parker. I'm like, wow, that's old school crime
Really
fiction.
old school. But no, Lahane is fantastic. And yeah, I'm going to do a long form video about him after I finish his last book. I haven't read Small Mercies yet.
I have not
And
read that either. I haven't
yeah, I
read.
have that planned this spring. So as soon as I read that, I'm going to kind of do a retrospective and overview of all of his works because I'll have read everything at that point.
Let me
And
see. What have I not read yet?
yeah, even if, I mean, a lot of people don't click on those, but those kinds of videos over time, more people see them. But hopefully it'll get more people reading them because I think sometimes crime fiction gets a bad rap that, it's just kind of plot based and formulaic. But I think Lahane, when he's good, he kind of elevates it a bit above, the average kind of formulaic, mystery book number, blah 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 with this detective.
Yes, I'm very much a well, I'm a fan of noir. I feel like Lahane does noir exceptionally well.
Yeah,
I mean,
absolutely.
I read Mystic River last year, and that was one of my favorite reads. So,
That's one of his best.
let me see, which ones have I not read yet? I haven't read the historical books he did. Which you
Yeah,
would
those are
probably.
the those are the three I read in January.
I
And
have not read Since We Fell, and I haven't read his newest one.
Yeah. Since We Fell is probably the only one I don't recommend.
Yeah, I've heard that one wasn't that good.
Yeah,
Most people go
yeah.
like, "Man, what happened?"
Just shows even a great author. I mean, most great authors have a dud here and there. So he's allowed. Everything else is so good. So
Yeah, I've been kind of feeling the itch for crime fiction recently, but I'm hoping to complete Sharp's Tiger or The
oh,
Crossing
nice.
soon. So
Yeah, I've read a bunch of Cornwell, like 10 or 12, but I haven't read any of the Sharp books yet. I'm kind of saving those for last, I think, just because there's so many of them.
this is my first Cornwell. It's pretty good.
He's
Also,
he's great. He's a great writer. I mean, he's a top 10 for me.
I can see where Joe Abercrombie got much of his style from.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Who's not George R. R. Martin or Robert E. Howard. I can see where he got a lot of his style from.
But I think even Martin and Abercrombie, I think, took their cues from his battle sequences because Cornwell is still my favorite as far as that's concerned. I think he's the best.
Yeah, he definitely loves to. He really captures like good details. You know.
Yeah, and I find it so immersive. I mean, Abercrombie's great at it too, as is Martin. But when I read the King Arthur trilogy, the Warlord Chronicles, I mean, there's a scene in there where I felt like I had a spear and I was on that spear wall. I was like in it. I mean, I just felt so immersed in just the way he describes everything, and that seems to be universal in all of his books that I've read because he does different eras very, very well, and he just I don't know. He has a great knack for that, great skill for that.
Yeah, I agree. And also I'd say I'm crawling through The Crossing because well, McCarthy is not an easy read. Not always anyway. There's some of them like No Country for Old Men. I think you could read without too much trouble.
Yeah, McCarthy for me he's hit or miss. I actually didn't finish that trilogy with The Crossing. I just wasn't enjoying that one. But The Road is one of my favorite books of all time. So I'm going to read Outer Dark sometime soon. I have it on the shelf. I heard that's another good one of his. But um, yeah, so he's kind of hot and cold with me so far. But I don't have enough of a sample size to really say.
Yeah,
It's not
I know what you mean. I can see how he might turn some people off.
Yeah, I mean that prose style is definitely not for everybody.
Oh no, I mean it doesn't
But
use
I
punctuation
think
or
it works
anything like that.
perfectly in The Road. I mean, it's so masterful. I think it just adds such bleakness to it. But when I was reading The Crossing in particular, it was just I don't know, I felt it was tough to keep track of characters without the punctuation and especially the dialogue, it kind of all felt too similar to me, but yeah, so I stopped after that one. So he's kind of I think I've read 3 and I loved one, I liked one, and didn't like one. So I just need to read more.
Yeah, I've read much of his work, and I've liked most of what I've read, maybe except
Yeah.
for Child of God. But even then, there are some things in Child of God I appreciate, but
Yeah.
I can see how people might not like that one. It's about necrophilia and all that.
Oh, well, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. What else have you been reading recently aside from Brian Lee Durfee and
Man, I just finished it was a slog. I hate to say it was a slog, but I just finished Gai Jin by James Clavell, which is the third one in the Asian saga. Shogun I loved, Taipan I loved, and Gai Jin was a struggle. It took me I mean, I granted I was traveling, but it took me almost 3 weeks to finish it. And it it was tough. It wasn't my favorite read of the year for sure, and definitely not my favorite of his. I mean, there was still a lot of good in it, but just kind of disappointing because it took kind of the historical cues from Shogun, even though it was 250, 280 years later, 260 actually years later, and it had some of the characters and descendants from characters from Taipan, and I thought it was going to be this perfect marriage, and it wasn't. I think it was one of those. You've probably read those books where the author's really well established and the editor can't tell them anything because they're so well established. I feel that's what happened here with Clavel, that the editor just wasn't able to trim the fat from this book because it was just so bloated. It was really disappointing to me.
Yeah, I saw Tori did a video about Shogun recently. I think it was yesterday, actually.
Yeah, I haven't seen that. She's in my watch later queue. Hopefully, get to that in the next couple days. Yeah, I think it's why you should read Shogun. Yeah, Shogun was. I mean, it's probably a top 10 or top 15 book of all time for me. I love the book. Um, but yeah, the second sequel was a bit disappointing, unfortunately.
Yeah, I mean, sadly I'm not Brian Bell. I can't just pick up a thick book and just read it. You know, someday maybe we'll get him to read Gravity's Rainbow or something. But
Right.
I have to at least be thinking about the book and be like, okay, I'm really wanting to read this. You know, something like that. But
Well,
someday,
and I mean, it was probably one of my most anticipated reads of the year.
Shogun
And
or another book.
unfortunately, it was the Gaijin. It was
Oh,
just, yeah, it was just disappointing.
yeah, I've had books like that. Like I read Embassy Town last year by China Mieville, and
Yeah.
yeah, that wasn't fun. That wasn't a fun read.
I
But
haven't read Mieville yet.
yeah, it's I wouldn't start with that one because you might get thrown off by the weird language tidbits.
Yeah.
But you know, also I was reading it during a trip, which sort of discombobulated me a little bit. So yeah.
Yeah, I think certain books work well when you travel and certain absolutely don't. I thought
Yeah,
Gaijin was going to be perfect for me because I was in Japan for a week and I thought the setting and everything, but I think the book itself, it was just too bloated. I mean, it was 1,100 pages. It should have been like 6.
fair enough. I mean, I tend to be picky about big books. I mean, if it's like Stephen King, I'll probably check it out because
Yeah.
Stephen King can do a big book. But then there's some others. Well, I just haven't read them yet.
Yeah. Yeah.
I do find it interesting how BookTube is becoming more widely read, which I think is a good thing. So I
I
see
think
people
so too.
like
Yeah.
Joanna and Jimmy kind of stretching out, and people are like following suit. So I think it's a good thing.
Yeah, I think so as well. I know for me personally, just reading a lot of genres helps me keep it fresh. So I never hit those those reading slumps that a lot of people talk about. I really don't get into those just because I'm bouncing from genre to genre. And each month I try to read at least 3 genres. And I think it does keep it fresh. You go from like a big, thick, epic fantasy, and then you go to a shorter work of crime fiction, and then maybe an even shorter work of science fiction or something like that. It just, I don't know. I like the mental stimulus of changing genres and switching things up like that. For me, it's everything, and I just enjoy it a lot more that way.
Yeah, I know what you mean. It depends on what I'm feeling at that moment and if I'm really thinking about it. Though I've also been kind of skimming through some older books I've read because I don't know, just felt like it, I guess.
Yeah, I try to reread things I love too, or things I've forgotten. I've been going through probably last 10 years, going through reading a lot of the classic fantasy from the '80s that I read when I was a kid,
Mm.
and just kind of rediscovering it, and even things before that. Like I reread Narnia last year. Reread all those books.
Oh yeah.
And I think I actually like them more as an adult than as a kid. I think as a kid, I was looking for something more adult. And as an adult, I was just kind of embracing the whimsical side of the storytelling and that it was, kind of a middle grade type of series. And so I think I appreciated it actually more as an adult than I did when I read it when I was like, 11 or 12 years old.
Yeah, I remember I read The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe when I was in like 7th, 8th grade. And I
Yeah.
remember liking it.
Yeah. Yeah. It was my second fantasy series I ever read. And
Mm.
it was 6th grade, and I liked it, but I was looking for it, and I found it. I read Lord of the Rings as my third, and then that was up until recently my favorite book series ever. So
What
um,
is it now?
Rome of the Elderlings, Robin Hobb.
Oh, for
Yeah,
some reason I
she.
thought you were gonna say like Malazan or something.
No, I'm struggling through that. I read the first two. I DNF the third one, but I'm going to try again later this year.
Hmm.
It's really dense. It's really dense. A bit of a it was a bit of a struggle. I was also trying to read it like we talked about traveling. Reading certain books when you travel. I was trying to read it during a very very busy time of year for me,
Mm.
and I just didn't have the mental capacity to focus enough to read something that dense. I needed to be reading lighter stuff at that time. So I'm going to read it when I'm off in the summer, breezy summer read, right?
Yeah.
But for me, it's the opposite. Like when I'm off in the summer and I'm not working, I can actually tackle a lot more challenging reads. So
Well,
that's one of them.
I know you've been reading Durfee's books recently. How's that been going? Are
It's
they?
those read fast. I mean, they're huge. I mean, the
Let's say those are
one,
chunky boys.
yeah, they are. I mean, the third one, I started it last night. The third one is like, I don't know, 1,150 pages or something like that. But they read really fast. The pacing is pretty solid. There's a lot of POVs. So it doesn't feel like the length of what it is. I mean, it's 1,100 pages, so it's still going to take me, a week and a half or a little longer, but um, it's certainly reads faster than you would expect of something that big. Whereas, you know, Malazan, I mean, like the Durfee books, I read probably 50, 60 pages an hour. The Malazan books, I think I was averaging about 30 pages an hour.
Yeah, it's kind of
And
like that with it's kind of like that with the crossing.
yeah, oh yeah, you have to read that slow.
Yeah, it's, I mean, unlike something like All the Pretty Horses, which is, not too difficult to read, even though it's very evocative.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So it's like when it's that dense. So like Memories of Ice, that's the one that I DNF'd. Like I DNF'd 600 pages in. Um, I mean that's like a 30-hour read. Whereas even like Durfee's book is 1,100 pages. That's probably about a 22 hour read for me. So not nearly as long, but they're great. I mean, I recommend them. I haven't finished the series since I'm reading the third book, but first two books, I mean, they got my attention, and they're definitely in the vein of epic fantasy. They're very dark. I mean, we started with five of us on the read along, and two of the members of the read along dropped out because it was too dark for them to read. But it goes some pretty dark places, but if you like dark epic fantasy, I think it's worth reading at least 2/3 of the way through the series.
Yeah, I mean, I have the Forgetting Moon on my books I want to read sooner, so I'll
Yeah,
definitely pick it up at some point because I tend to be kind of picky with length, so I
sure.
usually stick with like trilogies. And
Yeah, yeah,
apparently it was going to be like 5 books, but for some reason the publisher wanted them to be 3. So, but if it's
yeah.
a
I think that
trilogy,
I
so
think
I'll
what
check it
happened.
out.
I think what happened is they gave them the option of um, keeping it at a 5 book series, but only giving him a 3 book contract. And then they were going to wait and see how the book sold. And I think he didn't want to risk not getting the whole story published. So he just changed it into these 3 huge books. um, which they are. It's probably 3,000 pages. The which would have been more manageable as a 5 book series, but it does read faster, so it's not so bad.
Yeah, it's yeah, and Richard Anderson's doing the art or did the art, and I like his art style. I have
Yeah,
Kings of the Wild up there. I haven't read it
that,
yet.
that's a fun one. I read that one last year. That was a lot of fun. There's a lot of like rock band references because they're kind of it kind of parallels like this mercenary war band with like a rock band, and they're
I've
kind of
heard
putting the
this.
band back together. It's really tongue in cheek. I mean, maybe the funniest thing in fantasy, except for maybe Joe Abercrombie. I mean, there were so many times I was laughing out loud at this thing, and um, yeah, I enjoyed it. I haven't read the second one yet, but the first one was really great.
Yeah, I did manage to read Best Served Cold from Abercrombie last year.
Nice.
and
Nice.
solid book. Though I was kind of fearing there for a moment that Joe was kind of treading water, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that I mean that book it's a divisive one
Yeah,
in
I've
like
seen
the
people like
fandom.
not like I liked it, but I had some I
Yeah.
just had some issues with it, or felt it kind of dragged a little bit.
I really liked it. I liked it. I mean, it felt like it was Kill Bill, set in the first Law universe. And I liked kind of that structure. And I mean, it's going to lend real well to the adaptation, which was announced. So um, that can be pretty exciting. But no, I think I enjoyed it more than most because when I did a video on I ranked all of the Joe Abercrombie books,
Mm.
and I had it a lot higher than most people expected, and people talked about that. I think the three standalones in general, like everybody has very different opinions on them. You got Best Served Cold's like a revenge tale, and the Heroes is military fantasy, and then Red Country is basically a western. So, Red Country, it's like if you like westerns, you'll like Red Country. If you don't like westerns, you're probably going to hate Red Country. Um,
Well, I like westerns, so I'm
so
probably gonna
I
like it.
I liked it a lot. I'm of the unpopular opinion. I have the Heroes as the third best of the standalones, and a lot of people consider that his best book. Period. So, but I'm
What
not
was your
huge on
favorite one?
military. Yeah, I'm not huge on military fantasy, so that's the reason why I have it third. It's not that it's a
What was
bad
your
book; it's
favorite
an
one?
amazing book. What's that?
What was your favorite one?
Well, the favorite of the standalones was Best Served Cold. My favorite Abercrombie book is Trouble with Peace.
Oh, okay. I haven't read the new trilogy yet because after Best Served Cold, I was feeling a little burned out with,
Yeah.
admittedly, with First Loss. I'm like, I'll do something else.
Yeah,
Um,
I spread them out over like 2 years. I read the first trilogy and then took a break and then picked up the standalones here and there, and then just worked my way through it.
well, the thing, like, I took a break. I was going to take a break after Last Argument of Kings, but then they announced that they're making a movie of Best Served Cold. So I'm like, all right, I'll read Best Served Cold.
Yeah.
So I did, and like I said, I liked it. I think it's still like a 4 out of 5 star read, but it
Sure.
was kind of I was kind of like, okay. There's some problems there. Kind of dragged a little bit, which was surprising to me because like Joe's good at keeping things moving.
Yeah.
Oh well, it's just my opinion after all. um, I still need to read Hob though. A lot of people, it's like it's like Lonesome Dove. It's that one like everyone and their grandma tells me to go read. You know?
She's my favorite. I didn't think anything would ever topple Lord of the Rings for me, but when I got to the end of the Realm of the Elderlings, it did. She's my favorite. I think she's one of the most skilled authors in the genre. Definitely one of the best at characterization. And the Hob detractors say that it's slow paced and everything, and I like that she takes her time, and I don't feel like it's slow because she's always giving you a lot more of other things. The plot is always slow, but she gives you such great character work. She gives you such great and meaningful world building, and yeah, she's my favorite. I spread her out over about 2 years as well, and that's I think the strength one of the strengths of the Realm of the Elderlings. It's not like Wheel of Time where it's 15 books. It's 16 books, but it's really 5 series. So you can like read a series, take a bunch of time off, read the next one, take a bunch of time off, and it breaks it up really well that way.
Yeah. Didn't you also read Lonesome Dove?
I did. Yeah, that's another I read that I guess January of last year. And yeah, it's top 10, top 50, another top 15 book for me. It was very up high. I did a top 10 list on my favorite historical fiction. It was on there. In fact, I did the thumbnail. I put my face onto one of the Cowboys' faces, and I'm in Texas, so I do own a cowboy hat, even though I never wear it. Put the cowboy hat on just for the thumbnail.
um, yeah, I'm gonna read that this summer. So hopefully, it seems like a summer read to me. I don't know why.
Yeah,
Just
it's
kind of.
it's it's so good. It's another one that's thick, but it reads really fast because it's plotted so well, and the characters are great. I mean, it's just it's a masterful book. I mean, all the hype around it it's not hype. It's really good.
I mean, it's also set in Texas, if I recall right. So
It is, yeah.
I'm sure that was fun for you. You know, aren't you living in Texas?
Yeah, I'm down in Austin, so the story kind of started down here, and then they're basically running cattle all the way to Montana is the thing. And I likened it to a kind of like a fantasy quest tale where this like fellowship is on a quest, and there just
I do
happens to
love
be a
quests.
western where the quest is to get to drive cattle to Montana, and all the trials and tribulations along the way. But yeah, it's so good. Some of the most memorable characters I've read anywhere.
I'll have to. Yeah, I have it. I have it over there. Or well, I'll go get it.
It's so good, especially if you've read some westerns. I mean, if you read westerns, you'll definitely like it. I mean, a lot of people read it as their only western. Hey, that's the exact copy I have.
Yeah, I got this for Christmas. So
Good
thank you,
gift.
mom and dad. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah,
You've been. One of my goals on my channel this year is to read more indie books as well. Have you read any indie books at all?
I have. In fact, I think I read enough last year that when I do a Red Fury Book Awards at the end of the year. I actually had an indie category. Um, the best self-pub books that I've read. But yeah, I don't read as much as a lot of channels kind of focus or specialize on it. I don't do that, but I do try to read at least one or two every quarter.
Mm.
And it's I mean, it's tough just because I have a huge physical TBR, and like even a lot of the authors that I want to read are in the fantasy genre, but I have so many authors in the fantasy genre I haven't read or that I need to catch up on because I took like a 20-year break reading fantasy. So I've been playing a lot of catch up the last few years, but I do try to read a lot of indie as much as I can fit in.
Yeah, I'm trying to. One of those authors I've wanted to get to for a long time is Ursula K. Le Guin. I just have never
Hmm.
found the time to set some stuff down and read some of her books.
Yeah, I read Earthsea like 2 years ago. I read those books and they were great. Um, Really great writer, really great world building, and it felt. I'm finding something that I really enjoy recently. I've been able to vocalize it better. Is I'm enjoying kind of older fantasy that doesn't feel like the same old thing, like older fantasy that brings different things to the table. And I feel she does that. That she's just such a skilled writer and such a unique series that it doesn't really follow like one character. I mean, it just kind of goes around, and it isn't until you read the short stories that you get a lot of the world building, but it somehow works.
Also read Kindred earlier. I actually read it
Oh,
last month,
outstanding.
which
Yeah.
is a fantastic book. I read it with my friend Darko, kind of by accident. He was like,
Oh, okay. Yeah. His review's like one of the best book reviews I've ever seen.
I know. I did a conversation with him about I did a
Oh, I'll
convers
have to find that.
I
Yeah.
did a conversation with him about Kindred, and he was like, "Oh yeah, I got a review. I'll just put it up." And I'm like, yeah, "Okay, fine." It blows up the next day as I'm putting this
Yeah.
putting that video up. I'm like, "Dang it, man! Really?" He's like, "Oh man, it was a great video though."
It was. It was a great review.
It's
Yeah.
kind of freaky though, because we were texting back and forth, and he's like, "Dude, I know where this place is in Maryland, 'cause he lives over there."
Yeah, well, right?
Oh my
No, I
gosh.
definitely enjoyed his perspective on that book. That's a fantastic book.
Yeah, no, that was great. I mean, it was like reading. I don't know if you ever saw 12 Years a Slave, the movie. It's
I
kind of like
did.
that with a sci-fi twist.
Yeah. And
Not quite as brutal, but eh.
I think it made it easier to look at slavery from an outsider's perspective because of the sci-fi twist.
Mm-hmm.
Because I mean, we've probably all read books that have slavery in it, but for me, I felt it so much more keenly in this book, just because she was even dealing with this from an outsider perspective,
Mm-hmm.
um, and yeah, I thought it hit really hard.
I thought what was particularly interesting is how she explored um, what you would do to survive.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and she kind of takes apart that idea of the Uncle Tom stereotype, which I thought was really interesting.
Yeah, it's one of those. What are you going to do to survive?
Yeah,
Just about anything. Yeah.
yeah. It's like it's not because they it's not because they liked their masters or anything. You got to do what you got to do, man. I'm
Yeah.
not saying it's right, but it's just the world they're in.
Yeah, I want to read more of her for sure. There's a short story collection I might pick up later. I don't recall the name of it right now, but um, later this year, I should say. But I definitely want to read more of her. I know the Parable of the Sower and its sequel are kind of famous ones as well. So
Yeah, I actually have that one over there. I just, I haven't read it yet. And I don't know if you've ever had one of those authors you kind of kick yourself for not trying earlier, but Butler was one of those authors. I'm like, dang it, why didn't I read her earlier?
yeah, right.
It's great.
So I said that with so I read the Empire trilogy last year, Raymond E. Feist and Janny Wirtz,
hmm
and in my review of the first book, I said I read a lot of 80s fantasy in the 80s, and I somehow missed this series, and I'm kicking myself. And Janny Wirtz actually responded, and she said, anytime you find a book, it's the right time.
Yeah, I've seen.
Okay.
It's so weird because I was I've known like about the fantasy genre and big players. I never heard of Janny Wirtz until I got on BookTube.
Yeah.
So you're always discovering new people. I guess is the lesson there.
Yeah, and I think she's probably not as big as she should be, but hopefully with her series ending or the last one being published this year, she'll get a little bit more, not notoriety, but um, you know what I mean.
Yeah, more traction. I
Yeah,
hear you.
yeah.
Um, God, that was another author I kicked myself for not trying earlier. Um, Well, I mean, I can't think of any at the moment. Well, except for Butler, anyway, because it was the most recent.
Yeah.
I
But
man,
I mean, there's only so many books you can read in a year, and there's so many amazing authors out there, and I think all of us we just hope that we discover as many of them as we can.
yeah, it's definitely it's definitely a journey. So,
For sure. Yeah.
like, yeah, it's been an interesting journey. I've gotten interesting recommendations.
And I
So,
think we all have to also realize that there are authors out there that are probably perfect for us that we'll never find. It's
yeah,
just impossible. And it's as much as that you hate to think about that, it's true. I mean, I think about Robin Hobb, one of my favorite authors ever. Like 3 years ago, I'd never heard of Robin Hobb. So you just never know.
yeah, I had heard of Hobb. I think I had before. I think I remember George R. R. Martin talking about her at some point, but it wasn't really until BookTube where I really was hearing people going like, "Yo, she knows what
Yeah,
she's
I
doing."
mean, because I took a break from reading the genre, I just kind of missed her because I stopped reading fantasy like early to mid 90s and then just came back like 5 years ago, 6 years ago. So, there were a lot of voices in there, Hobb, Abercrombie, that, didn't exist when I was reading and I wasn't really paying attention to the genre. So, I'm just glad I'm back to find, those two in particular.
Yeah, it was a goal when I started my channel. I wanted to cover fantasy that kind of slips through the cracks a little bit.
Yeah.
So hopefully I mean, it's worked out.
Yeah.
It's been working out as much as it. Though there are the normie stuff I've covered. I actually covered Dune recently on my channel, so that was fun because the new movie came out.
Yeah, I'm seeing. I haven't seen the movie yet, but I've been seeing my. I have a Dune. Actually, it's the second highest viewed video on my channel, and it's gotten a lot of views in the last few weeks because of the movie. I rank all of the Dune books, and yeah, I noticed that when you can always tell. Like I had a Stephen King video about a year and a half ago, my top 10 Stephen King books, and then it was around, I don't know, I think it was sitting around 25,000 views or something, and then his new book came out and it's almost at like 100,000 views because it got so many eyes just when the new book came out in September, and people were searching on the algorithm top 10, like top 10 Stephen King books or whatever, and my video was popping up. And so I want to thank Stephen King for all the eyes on the channel back in September.
Yeah, I know what you mean. It's yeah, that Dune video got some people commenting and stuff, so that was nice. But I
Yeah,
kind
I
of
mean,
expected it because it's a pretty popular book.
yeah, I still find it really hard to predict what people are going to watch though, because I
Yeah,
put out a video like a week and a half ago or 2 weeks ago. 2 weeks ago. It was just is bigger better, and I talked about the biggest books on my bookshelf and kind of contrasted that. I honestly thought it was a throwaway video that I'd get maybe 800, 1,000 views, and it's sitting at like 15,000. Like I never would have predicted like that video is something that people would want to watch, but apparently they do. And you just never know. And then you put the time into like a dedicated book review and like, 200 people watch it.
oh yes, you also co-founded a new Discord. I saw.
Yeah, the fireside.
Yeah.
Yeah. Fun place to hang out.
Do they call it that because you have red hair?
No, actually, we wanted kind of a cozy vibe. So we were coming up with names like that, and
I couldn't
Fireside
resist.
just
I
stuck.
apologize.
But I said, "Hey, Red Fury, Fireside, that works too." But yeah, no, it's been good. And it's Matt from Matt on Books, and Joanna and I started it, and it's been great. And it's what I like is it's growing, but it's growing slowly. We don't want it to blow up and be huge. We want it to feel like like the commenters, like everybody knows each other, and we can have conversations about books. And it's been a lot of fun. I never thought I'd want to start a Discord until I talked with them and we decided to do this, and it's been a lot of fun. Just my phone's been blowing up as we've been talking with notifications from it. So it's nice that people just want to hang out there and talk about books. I mean, that's what we love to do. That's why we're on BookTube, right?
Yes, indeed. Yeah, I think I actually know that I've joined the fireside. So yeah, it's a nice place. It's a lot of chats though. My God, just like, oh man.
Not as many as some others though, because there's some other ones that like I've gone on and have just been overwhelmed at first. So we purposely try to keep the threads a little I don't know, little less in quantity and a little, we have kind of the way they're organized a little bit. I think it makes it a little bit easier and less overwhelming, especially for the new people that come in, because we want to encourage people that maybe see one of our videos and want to talk about something that they can navigate and figure out where to go.
You want more quality conversations.
Absolutely.
I hear you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I think you also, didn't you read GGK with John, or was that someone else? No, I think that was Ben.
No, I read that last year though, but I was glad he loved it.
Oh.
Yeah, that was Song for Our Bond was my book of the year last year.
Oh yeah, that's right. That's right.
So it was great to see that he loved it. Not a surprise. I mean, I know his taste pretty well, and I knew he was going to love it. But yeah, that book just really spoke to me, and I'll be reading Tigana in April, so that'll be my 5th GGK book.
Yeah, I mean, speaking of thick books, I'm going to be reading Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell in April.
Ooh, that one scares me. That's big.
I won't guarantee that I'll finish it in April, but I'm going to start it in April. Yeah, I know.
Is that I saw you post? Are you and Colin Buddy reading at that? Is that what's going on?
We did buddy read Piranesi.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Well, no. We did a conversation about Piranesi. We were gonna
Yeah,
have
Piranesi's awesome. Yeah,
we were going to
I've read
have
that.
Laura on that, but sadly she couldn't make it because she got busy with stuff. You know how it is.
Absolutely.
Oh man, my reading's been kind of slow right now because like college has just been ridiculous.
Yeah.
I managed to now February is already a pretty slow reading month for me anyway, so not
But
too
just that you're still able to read, a few books a month. I mean, when I was in college, the only reading I was doing was for school. So just that you're able to still keep it going. I remember very distinctly I was only able to like read for pleasure in the summers.
mm,
Um, so and part of it I didn't prioritize it, but yeah, it's definitely tough. So,
it
the
is.
fact that you're able to do it, it's great.
It is. Yeah, it's excuse me. It's definitely it's not easy.
Yeah, no, not at all.
um though I actually forgot because like I said last week, my this last week was pretty crazy. Um I was having some issues. Somebody hacked my Facebook, so that wasn't fun.
Great.
And yeah, we're trying to sell cars. That was that was fun to deal with. Um, just stuff, man.
Yeah.
um, but
No,
yeah,
it's tough because I mean you have to do so much reading for classes, and then to read more on top of that, it's just tough. I probably watched more television in college than than I did the rest of my life combined. Just to
I mean, I've been fortunate to take hands-on classes, so not so much reading.
That's good.
Well, I am taking a Spanish class right now, so that's because I didn't do it in high school, and that's been interesting.
Yeah.
I forgot to I think I forgot to, or maybe we did talk a little bit about music. I don't remember in our last conversation, but I saw you read some biographies of music that you like, or something like that.
Yeah, I did some memoirs last year. Yeah, one of the ones I did Elton John's memoir last year. That was really good. Yeah, a lot of times if I pick a biography or a memoir, I often want to hear about, artists and things like that. So a lot of times I do pick musicians, but I do have one on the schedule for the spring. I'm going to read one by Joe Jackson, who's a musician I don't know, but he has a memoir that actually the viewer sent me that I'm interested in reading. So that's going to be on the spring TBR. Um,
So, are there other books you're looking forward to reading this year that you haven't read already?
Yeah, so I'm my next series after I finished Durfee's series is I'm going to read Mark Lawrence for the first time. I'm going to read the Broken Empire trilogy.
Yeah, I always love saying this, but I had a weird encounter with him once on Facebook, so
Oh yeah.
that was interesting. I think he was a little intoxicated when we were talking.
He's an author that I see people I trust love him and people that I trust don't like his
Oh my
books.
gosh, I have run into that a lot, you know.
So I'm going in just kind of even keel, having no idea whether I'm going to like it or not. But yeah, I'm going to start that probably in May.
Same thing with like Malazan. Like I've heard a lot of people I respect who love it, and then people I respect who just don't like it at all. So
Yeah.
I'm like, and I mean I like darker stuff, so I'm more prone to pick up like Malazan than Wheel of Time. I mean, I
Yeah,
have
I
nothing
think
against
I
Wheel of
mean
Time,
it
but
just shows it's all subjective. I
well,
mean,
taste, yeah, for sure, it can be. I mean, because people are different.
yeah,
I mean,
absolutely.
I don't see you reading like The Vor. I read The Vor last year. That was an interesting read,
Yeah.
but fun stuff like that. I mean, but what's lucky is we mostly get along on BookTube.
Yeah, and I think as long as all of us are just respectful to the authors and the fandom, and just simply saying, this book didn't work for me, it might work for you. is usually not going to piss somebody off if it's their favorite book, you know.
Yeah, I mean, I'm the same way. You know, I don't try to diss on the author or anything like that because, like, you know, I mean, it is a book at the end of the day, and as much as I
Yep.
love reading and I love the experience of doing so, I, I don't think I'll get upset enough to get mad at the author.
Yeah,
Well, maybe
same.
unless they're like Terry Goodkind, but you know, we won't go there. We won't go there.
But that's aside from the book. You know, if
Yeah,
you're
that's
doing the
true.
book review, you're not reviewing the author. I mean, yeah, if the author's a tool in real life, that's different.
Yeah, no, yeah, but I got a couple of things like Lonesome Dove. Like yeah, like it's like 900 something pages. Cuz it's weird. I'm kind of wary of longer books. I mean, I'm not against, you know, I'll read them. Like I've read, you know, Stephen King's, you know, chunky books. Like I love It. I think it's a great book. And I also enjoy The Stand, even though The Stand eh, climax kind of drags the book down a little bit. It was my favorite King book, but then I'm like, I've had to move it around over the years.
I think with any big book, it's just the commitment. I
I know.
mean, it's just so much longer to finish it. You know, a 300-400 page book, you know, that doesn't take nearly as long as some of these books that are 2-3 times as long. So it's hard to commit, especially if you're not 100% sure that it's going to be a book for you. But um, yeah, but I don't know, the chunky ones. The chunky ones, when they're good, man, they're amazing.
I might try GGK at some point because, you know, most of his books are standalone. From all
Hmm.
accounts, they don't look too long. I can probably get through it. I mean, I don't know how
Yeah,
quickly, but you know.
they're all like 500-600 pages, so they're
Oh, okay.
big, but they're not, crazy like some of these others. But yeah, they are standalone, so you don't have to commit to, a 10 book series or even a trilogy of chunky books or anything like that.
Yeah, I mean, I when I read a series, I try to spread them out. You know, I mean, I got to give a shout out to Ben from Bangus Khan because that man, for some reason, he can just binge book series like it's going out of style, and I'm like, I don't know how you do that, but I'm glad you can because
Yeah.
I like savoring the book's taste, if that makes sense. It's like food.
Yeah, I think even when I'm reading a book series, I generally don't read anything back to back. I at least put one book in between series installments. Like even when I read The Wheel of Time, I read it fast, but I was still putting a book in between each book. Um, but yeah, I don't like to spread it out too much because I don't like to forget everything.
Well,
But
no, yeah. I mean, I'm hoping to read. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I am hoping to read after I finish. Well, I'm probably gonna finish Sharp's Tiger first before I finish The Crossing. But
yeah,
um, hope to read Way of a Dan by the end of this month because like I got it,
yeah,
and cover is beautiful. I have to say. So
that's a great series. I mean, that's it's
I'm looking forward to it. I really am. I'm really hoping it's. I'm really looking forward to reading it.
yeah. I read all three last year, and that was my Fury winner for favorite self pub of the year was the Dan trilogy. I liked it. Was a nice blend of modern fantasy with enough of kind of a traditional fantasy kind of feel and archetypes. So it was kind of a nice, almost like a hybrid between those things. And Philip Chase's writing style was fantastic, and yeah, I really enjoyed it. So I hope you do as well.
I heard it gets a little violent. I'm like,
It does, and there's some darkness in there, but it's I mean, it's a story well told. And for me, especially the third book just I feel like he just totally stuck the landing.
I'm looking forward to it. Also, apparently it deals with religion, and I'm always
Yes, yeah.
fascinated by religion. So I'm like, all right, hopefully this will tickle that feather a little bit.
That definitely will, and it starts from the first prologue.
Yeah.
Tells you right about it that's an important part of the book. Durfee's books as well.
I've heard that
That's
as
a
well.
big, yeah, that's a big portion of what's going on in the five warrior angels is, different religions, or even thinking the same religions having different perspectives on, revelatory things, and um, just different beliefs. It's really interesting to see.
Yeah, I know. I've heard that, and I'm hoping that whenever I get to that, because, you know, you mentioned it earlier, the TBR is ridiculous. So
Yep,
yeah,
unfortunately.
TBR is always expanding, always growing. I'll probably be your age, and there'll still be a bunch of them.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, I keep a spreadsheet, and last year or 2 years ago. So 2 years ago my TBR had 400 books on it, and I read 124 books that year. And
Holy
at the end of the
crap!
year it had
I only read
400 books on it.
85. I thought 85 was a lot.
I read 124 books and the TBR didn't move. Because, especially if you're on BookTube, not just behind the camera, but all of us watch each other, and you hear someone rave about a book, you're like, "Oh, I want to read that." And you write it down, and it's like it's a zero sum game. Like I'm reading 100 books a year, but I'm adding, 2 books a week to the TBR, so it doesn't move.
It's like
So,
it's like
yeah,
so,
I'll never get there.
it's like Frank Zappa said, so many books, so little time.
Absolutely.
I don't know what type of music you listen to, though you're a music teacher.
Just about everything. I mean, classical and jazz are probably my top two, but I do listen to just about anything.
Oh, I read a book by. I actually have it right up here. Let me pull it out real quick. Oh, it is. Because I'm also a big fan of the jazz genre. Coltrane by Ben Ratliff. I thought was a fantastic book.
Oh, nice.
An old friend of mine gave it to me, and it's. I think it's a great book. I don't know if you're. I don't know what kind of jazz you like, but I thought that was a really good book.
Well, one jazz memoir I can definitely recommend is the Miles Davis autobiography.
Ooh, yeah, I've seen that at my Barnes and Noble. I'm like, I gotta
It's
pick that up.
it's a top 5 biography of all time for me. And if you've ever heard his interview, you can hear the whole thing in his like very soft spoken voice, and
It's kind of raspy.
and it's funny because like his greatest compliment he could ever give anyone is if he calls you an MFer. And all through the book, like when he's talking about people, it's just it's funny, but it's really good. It's a really well done, kind of one of those stream of consciousness autobiographies where he was probably just talking to a guy and they were recording it and writing it down. But
Yeah,
um,
I feel
it's
weird
good.
about reviewing nonfiction because it's like, it's like that's a person's story. I would feel kind of awkward if I went like, "That's
Yeah,
bad. Your story's bad,"
yeah, right.
or something like that. You know, so like it's weird though if it's something like Into the Wild or which is more like narrative nonfiction. Like it gives you more of a like gives
Yeah,
you more
yeah.
wiggle room. I read like Killers of the Flower Moon last year, and I thought that book was great.
Oh, yeah,
So
I read that several years ago. Yeah, that was a very good one too.
and oh, I also read In Cold Blood with Colin. I'm hoping to talk with that. I'm hoping to talk with him about it soon.
Yeah, I haven't read that one.
Yeah, it's really good. I knew the story. It was one of those weird cases where I knew what the story was about and how it was going to end. But yeah, Capote's really good.
Yeah,
I'm kind. That's another one. I'm like, man, I can't believe I didn't read this guy earlier. He's great.
so many of those. Like I've only read one, but I need to read more. I read one Elmore Leonard, and was thinking, why haven't I read more Elmore Leonard?
I read his Western short story collections, which is some of the best westerns I've ever read.
I'm
So,
sure. Yeah, the
um,
guy's talented.
yeah, unfortunately, he has since passed.
Yeah.
I still need to see Justified because a lot of people are
Oh,
like,
it's so good. It is so good.
because a lot of people are telling me Justified, like, and it seems right up my alley. There's like cowboy stuff, but it's kind of like this backwoods noir.
It's
Sounds. I'm
so
like,
yeah, it's great. The first half of the first season, it takes a while for them to figure out what they want to do, really. And then after that, it's really good. Um, Yeah, no, it's a great season, great show. I just watched they did like a sequel, one season sequel series. I just watched that recently, like
Oh yeah,
last
yeah,
month.
uh huh, yeah. I saw a trailer for that.
Yeah, it's not nearly as good as the original, but it was just fun to see the character again because Timothy Oliphant is just he's so good in that show.
Yeah, God, where was the first time I saw him? I mean, I know it wasn't Deadwood, though I do like Deadwood a lot. He's great in
Yeah.
that show. I think it was actually the Crazies. Yeah, maybe that one. I'm not sure. Plays a lot of law enforcement characters.
He's good. I mean, yeah, he was what? He was in Mandalorian too, so
Yeah, wearing Boba Fett's armor. That was good. That was good.
yeah.
Yeah, I do like Oliphant as an actor, and again, I still need to read Justified. I want to read like Elmore Leonard's novels. I just don't know where to start.
Yeah, there's a lot. I wish I could help you.
Yeah, I know.
But I've only read one, so
He's one of those. He cranked them out like it was going out of style. Like, oh,
yeah.
same thing with like Larry McMurtry. Though I did see the Last Picture Show, the old movie from the '70s.
Yeah.
That was an interesting experience because like I didn't really like thought it was just fine.
Yeah.
It's kind of like it's weird. I'll have to see it again. But I had some friends who were like, maybe watch it when you're older, and I'm like, okay. I really don't love when people say that, but all right,
Yeah, right.
like okay.
I wish people said that to me.
Yeah, I saw the book though at my local bookshop. I'm like, maybe I'll pick it up and see how it goes. Oh, what else? I mean, I saw Brokeback Mountain, though he just wrote the screenplay for that movie.
Oh, I didn't realize that. Yeah, I saw the movie whenever it came out, but I didn't realize he wrote that screenplay. That's hmm.
But yeah, like my first like official start with Larry McMurtry as an author is this giant behemoth right here. So wish me
Awesome.
luck when I get there.
You don't need luck. It's that good. You're gonna love it.
Yeah, I'm hoping I'm like this better be a top 5 because like I said earlier, it's one of those like everyone and their grandma's telling me to go read it.
Yeah.
My friend Amanda even told me that her hometown actually had the church that inspired Larry McMurtry to title it Lonesome Dove. So
Oh wow, that's neat.
she's very proud of that. Very very pleased with that, and she also loves the book as well, and she's generally
That's
more
cool.
critical. So I'm like, all right, I
Okay.
guess
Yeah.
I'm like, all right, I guess this book really is really what people say.
Yeah.
I'm hoping that it's good as advertised. But then again, I have read the first Law, and a lot of people. It's like how people say Lonesome Dove. Everyone and their grandma was telling me to go read that, and I did. And
Yeah.
it was very good. So hopefully we'll get that type of experience.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure you will.
Yep. I mean, it's. I hear it reads very fast. So, or well, you
It
just
really
said
does.
that.
It is, and it's plotted very well, and just the characters they'll suck you in right away. And then this story, this grand quest to run cattle, yeah, it's awesome. It's so good.
I mean, I don't know if you read All the Pretty Horses, but by Cormac McCarthy, but
Yeah, I did. That was
I've heard it's a similar vibe. So I'm like, okay.
yeah. I don't know if I'd ever compare those two authors.
Yeah,
just
McCarthy's
because
certainly grimmer.
just because of the writing style.
Also, McCarthy's very grim.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
I bet even like Joe Abercrombie would pick up one of his books and just be like, "Geez, I got to put this down." Though hilariously, Blood Meridian and Lonesome Dove apparently came out the same year. So
Oh, interesting.
yeah, that talk about a contrast.
Yeah.
One of them won the Pulitzer Prize, and like that's how I'm gonna start the review. I'm gonna be like, okay, so these two books came out. I'll explain what Blood Meridian is like, and I'll explain what Lonesome Dove's like, and I'll be like, okay, guess which one won the Pulitzer Prize that year? And I'll just block the little block where it just says on Lonesome Dove,
Yeah.
Pulitzer Prize winner. So I won't get the comments being like, "Hey, I saw it on the book." That's it.
Yeah.
Yeah. But no, yeah, I'm hoping it's good because I want to read more quality Western literature because I like Western movies.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, everyone always says if you read just one Western, that's the one. So I
Yeah,
think
I've
that
heard
says a lot about it.
people say it's like the great, like one of the great American novels. So I'm like, okay, yeah.
Yeah, I agree. Ed just put out a video a couple weeks ago on the Brothers Gwyn. um, it was his top 5 or top 10 westerns. That might be
Oh
a
yeah,
video
yeah,
for
yeah.
you to check out if
Oh
you
yeah.
want to,
I think I saw
because
that.
he loves westerns.
Yeah, no, yeah, I think some of those books I have on my list, like the Sisters Brothers. I want to check that one out.
Yeah,
That looks fun, or maybe not. I know he mentioned True Grit, and
yeah,
I
yeah,
remember, I want to read True Grit again because I read it in high school. I actually liked it. It wasn't one of those like, oh no, we're reading
yeah,
True Grit, but I like it. I like it a lot.
yeah.
It's a good one if you want to like short read.
Yeah, I haven't read that one yet.
Yeah, it's a good one. I do also the films are pretty good though. Funnily enough, I think the one that the Coen brothers did, 2010, is even better than
I think so too. I've seen both of them, and
though.
the whole John Wayne thing just, I don't know.
More of a Eastwood guy or just
Yeah, I mean, John Wayne's a classic and all that, but he's John Wayne in every movie. He's not a character actor. He's always John Wayne, and yeah, so
Though I will say, my favorite part of the original one is when he's about to face off with Robert Duvall, and he's like, "Well, that's bold talk for a
oh yeah,
one-eyed fat man." He just
yeah,
he's like he's all pissed. He's like, "Fill your hands, you son of a bitch!" And he drives over towards him. Sadly, Jeff Bridges did not deliver that line with as much gusto as John Wayne did.
no,
But yeah, I think the Coens actually did. I think it did better actually.
it was a good movie, and I thought the little girl was fantastic.
Oh,
I
yeah,
forget her actress's name right now, but yeah, I thought she was really good.
Yeah, I know it was weird seeing her in other things because like I saw that film when it was in theaters. So I was like 9.
Yeah,
That was before I really started like following like directors and like who writers are and all that stuff. So I was just like, ooh,
sure.
movie, yeah.
Yeah, that was a good one.
That was a really good one. Also, I like the Coen brothers a lot, so there you go.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, there's so much to read.
Absolutely true.
Yeah, I mean, do you like any rock music? Because we were talking about music.
Not much modern. I have. I mean, there are groups I listened to in the 80s and 90s and things like that, but as far as modern popular music, there's not really much that does much for me.
I hear you. I mean, there's a lot of I mean, I'll admit I'm not as well versed in classical music as you probably are. Though I do really enjoy the film Amadeus a lot.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
That really, I'm like, wow, classical music's cool. I've always liked classical music.
Yeah, he was so good in that role too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. So, like, what other books have you been reading as of late?
I started getting into the Dresden Files, the audiobooks.
Oh yeah, how you enjoying those? I actually met James Marsders a few years ago.
That's cool. He's great.
Yeah, nice dude.
Yeah, in fact, the video came out today. I reviewed the 4th book in the series. It was the first one I did audio. And I think he elevates the material. And it was the first time I started to like Harry. I didn't really like Harry in the first 3 books. I said in my review, he's kind of one of those characters that I feel is he's a male chauvinist that thinks he's a gentleman, and he just kind of comes off as kind of smarmy, basically. Um, but he felt more human in this book, and I think Marsters is part of that. And from seeing just the comments that have come through today, it seems like Butcher is starting to change the character, make him a little less creepy as the series goes on. But
Yeah, I remember.
he's
Sorry.
good. He's a really good narrator. And it helps these books. I particularly, I mean, I don't do a lot of audiobooks. I probably do,
Yeah,
I don't know,
same.
maybe 6 or 8 a year on average. But
Oh, I do even less than that.
when I do one, I like it when it's a first person narrative.
Mm.
And that's what the Dresden books are. You know, it's Harry telling the story. So it works really well that Marsters can just kind of embody the character and deliver everything, including the humor, in such a great way. So, but yeah, I did that one, and I actually finished the 5th one about 2 weeks ago, audio, and I have the 6th one I haven't started yet. But yeah, so I'll review the 5th one in my March book reviews, and it's my favorite of the series so far. So it's nice that it's getting better, because the series kind of, I don't know if you've read Dresden, but it starts real slow. Like the first book's average, and then the second book is lousy. And then third book was good.
Did you listen to those, or did you start by actually reading them?
I read the first 3 with my eyes.
Okay.
So and I liked the third book, but you know, I'd been told it starts slow, so I was patient with it. And they're real short reads.
Yeah, I've heard
But
they're
I
like kind of standalone, and then it kind of turns into a more like epic
yeah,
story. It's kind of that's weird.
you can start to see, because you're starting to get some characters that have come back, and you're also starting to see like the world building kind of layering upon itself, which I'm really enjoying that. Because like the first book, just as an example, the first book talked about this white council of wizards, and it talked about it, but you never really saw it. And then finally in the 4th book, you finally saw it. So you kind of start seeing things kind of build upon past books. So I'm enjoying that, but they are kind of standalone stories for the most part. And I mean, going in, I thought it was going to be a perfect series for me, because I thought, okay, it's fantasy and it's kind of crime fiction. Like the marriage of those two things is something that, you know, I should love. So I'm glad that I'm at the point now where the series is good. So I'm definitely looking forward to going forward with those.
I'll be right back real quick. I'm probably gonna cut this part out. I just need to do something real quick. I'll be right
Gotcha.
back. So, all right, I'm back.
Gotcha.
What were we talking about? Oh yes, the Dresden Files. Yeah, no, I know what you mean though, because like I'm kind of the same way. I've been kind of hesitant to try Dresden Files, but at the same time, I've heard they're kind of standalone. So I'm like, okay, yeah, I'm more down to try it. And also, I like noir. I like fantasy.
Yeah.
So yeah, should be great.
Yeah, and they're short, and they do read fast. I mean, they're like
It's always a
300
plus.
page. Yeah, they're 300-page books, and they read fast. So it's one of those. I mean, I hear about people reading like several of them over a weekend,
Oh my
just because
gosh.
yeah, because they go down very quickly. So yeah, they do have that going for it as well.
Yeah, like you mentioned audiobooks. I'm the same way about audiobooks. I don't do them often because I don't have anything against audiobooks. I just get distracted really easily when I read
Yeah,
or
I'm the
listen to
same
them.
way. I mean, I pretty much only read it during my commute, but a lot of times I listen to music during my commute. So that's why it often takes me, I don't know, 6 weeks probably on average to finish an audiobook that's only like 12 hours long. But
Like there's some I've enjoyed like Stephen Pacey. Like if there's like a really great performer like Stephen Pacey,
yeah.
like I like that. Also I've listened to some Lahane on listened to some of the Kinsey and Gennaro series
Oh,
on
okay.
audio. The guy Jonathan Davis is actually pretty good.
Yeah, the narrator, I mean, is make or break as far as I'm concerned. I mean, if you get a bad narrator, it sinks it.
God, those
I
long.
forget. I was trying to listen to some book that a friend highly recommended, and I don't remember the book, unfortunately, but I tried the audiobook and I got through an hour and I just said, I can't listen to this guy talk that long.
Yeah, there was this one book I listened to, or I listened to a sample, and the guy was like, he sounded like he had like emphysema or something. He could hardly breathe. And you could just hear him
Mm,
heavily breathing in the background. You're just like, what? But you
yeah.
know, it's yeah. I mean, I've been doing a radio gig at my college recently, and I'll take breaths during my segment, and
Hmm.
I hate listening. I hate listening to that because like,
Yeah.
oh god, I sound unhealthy. Ugh, ugh. But
They need a nap to take those out, right?
yeah, yeah. Um, but yeah, no, it's weird. I mean, again, I'm not against audiobooks. I mean, if you like them, that's great.
Yeah.
I just get distracted really easily, so
Yeah, I'm
I
the
have,
same way.
I have a harder time. Like,
And it's definitely a different experience. I mean, it's not the same as reading. I mean, I wouldn't say it's not reading. I'm not one of those, but I mean, it's a different experience in reading because someone's performing it for you. So a lot of times you're getting their interpretation rather than kind of your own that you would get by reading with your eyes. So, um, and I mean that's fine, but it's definitely a different experience. I've had people talk about doing a reread on audio, um, which I'd be interested to maybe try something like that too. But then again, I don't do that many audiobooks, so I don't know if I want to waste one of my one of my rereads. I mean, I do an Audible credit every other month, so don't know if I want to waste one in a book that I can just grab off the shelf and reread it.
yeah, oh man, who else have I listened to? I think I've heard a King audiobook, which I forget which one though, because
I think one thing's tough too is if you're reading fantasy on audio, is names.
nah,
So I have a good friend that just finished listening to the entire Wheel of Time, and this whole experience, she's always texting me this and that, and it was just kind of funny at times where she would text a name and I'd have to figure out who that is. Like, oh, okay, that you're trying to spell Egwene. Gotcha. Okay.
yeah, yeah,
When
yeah.
with epic fantasy, you got all these different worlds and different names and everything. And I mean, you can probably say them right, but it was just interesting. I had to sometimes just, okay, who's she talking about here?
Yeah, I talked to Jim from Fantasy for the Ages yesterday, and he had some illustrations behind him. One was of a raven, because
Hmm.
apparently there's a character in Wheel of Time. I think his name's Matt, who
Yeah.
is affiliated with ravens.
Great character. Great character arc.
Yeah, I mean, another kind of popular series. I don't know really what it's viewed like now, but I read The Gentleman Bastards last year. That was an interesting experience.
I haven't read those yet, but it's going to be the next. I have the subscription to Broken Binding, and that's the next series. So I'll own all three of those in the next quarter. So that'll be pretty cool.
Yeah, I actually saw some of those illustrations they did for since they're putting those out in Broken Binding.
Yeah,
I'm like, wow, those are great.
yeah, they do great work. I got on that sub list last year, and it's really great quality for what it cost.
I mean,
Um,
my God, the one I got, I call them the airport versions because they're
yeah.
really small.
Oh yeah.
I'm like, really? But it was well worth the time.
Yeah.
Though it was kind of hard because I would like I don't know, I can't sit still for whatever reason, so I'm always like moving around when I'm sitting. I'm always was afraid I would like accidentally like lose the book and it would just close and I'd be like, no, I didn't know the page number.
Oh.
Um, so yeah, are you more of a hardcover or paperback guy?
I like. I mean, paperback's easier to read, but the hardcover just looks great on the shelf, and it's kind of like the lifelong dream is to have a study where I'm surrounded by books, and the hardcovers just look better. So that's my answer. And it's sometimes they're huge, and you got to set them down to read them because they're too heavy to hold. Some of these big chunkers, but they just look they look really good on the shelf. So
I actually saw recently, or I was looking at your channel because sometimes I pull them up on YouTube. You know, you covered Vonnegut on one of your like wrap up videos recently. Um,
yeah, I think December. I think I read a Vonnegut. Which one did I read? I read Cat's Cradle.
oh, well, I was about to say, it's funny you say it. It's funny you mentioned that. I was actually talking to my friend Jason today, and he mentioned because he's doing a sci-fi month on his channel,
Hmm.
and he read Slaughterhouse-Five, and
Nice.
I haven't read Slaughterhouse-Five in a very long time, and I'm generally good at remembering what happens, but for some reason I can't quite remember what happened, and I do remember how he used trauma as like talking about used time travel to talk about trauma, but aside from that,
Yeah, I don't remember. I mean, it's been a while since I read Slaughterhouse-Five as well, but I do remember just the nonlinear nature of the story. Um, and it was one of those where I didn't feel I got to the end where I totally grasped everything.
uh,
So it is probably one I'll probably reread again because I did enjoy it.
yeah, I know. It's
Um,
like I want to reread that soon. I haven't found the time.
I like the description. Someone said reading Vonnegut is like listening to jazz, and I kind of get that because it's very. I wouldn't say it's improvisatory, but it often goes directions that you wouldn't expect, I guess. Um, but yeah, I want to read more Vonnegut too. Like all these authors, I want to read everything.
Yeah, no, it's kind of funny because I was talking with some friends the other day because it's weird how like it's kind of like unfair, but at the same time I'm kind of fascinated by it because like there's this sort of divide, I guess, between like literary and like genre fiction, and for some reason Vonnegut's one of those guys who is accepted by the literary establishment. Don't know why.
It's interesting. Some of them do crossover.
Don't know why, but I was talking to a friend of mine. He's like, well, he talks about a lot of really like deep stuff, and I'm like, isn't that what good speculative fiction should do,
Yeah.
like in general? He's like, yeah, I guess you're right. I don't know. It doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
He didn't even want to like talk about it anymore. He's just like, yeah, you're right.
But I think we experience that even in any genre. You're going to have the ones that do have more literary merit, and then the other ones that are just not not of that vein.
Just not. I mean,
Um,
I don't know if you think about those things, but that's just something I've thought about over the
well, it's
years.
like so even like just take westerns because we've been talking about Lonesome Dove. Lonesome Dove has tremendous literary merit. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
obviously, it won the Pulitzer and all of that. And then there's the popcorn westerns, Louis L'Amour, that's more genre type fiction. There's nothing wrong with those, but they're definitely different branches of the same tree. But yeah, I think it's just good anytime that the literati actually accept
Yeah,
things of genre fiction that are
I find it kind of interesting, really. Like you'll read like Bradbury, and like people, they're willing to accept Fahrenheit 451 for some reason. I don't know why. I mean, I'm not against it. I'm glad that Bradbury is getting love. You will not hear arguments from me about that, but
yeah.
I just find it interesting, I guess.
Well, maybe because he's just such a skilled writer and it
Oh
is
yeah,
ideas. But I think also a lot of times speculative fiction, it may not be, the literary types may not love it right away, but over time, either they soften or they just start to realize, oh yeah, that's a really, really worthy book to discuss or whatever.
yeah, like it's like like just people like Bradbury for some reason. I mean, I not for some reason. I love Bradbury, and
Yeah,
Bradbury's a
sure.
great writer. So I mean, I don't know if you've read much Bradbury.
Just Fahrenheit 451.
Oh yeah, I actually want to reread Something Wicked This Way Comes. Hopefully this October I can get to do that because I actually love that book more than Fahrenheit 451.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, I mean if you love it, you'll dig it. If you
Yeah,
ever do get
yeah.
around to reading, because I know your stack's probably like this long, like you go through the
It's
ceiling.
every time I feel bad because I mean I'm flattered like when authors reach out and want to send me their books, but I have to turn most of them, just about, not most, pretty much all of them down, because I have at least a 10 to 12 month physical backlog of books to read. So it's like I can't continue to add to that. I need to trim down my physical. I've trimmed down I'm trying to trim down the purchasing too, which I've done better at that. But it's it's just like, I'm sorry, I can't add.
I know, yeah.
I have like 90. I have like 90 books, physical books I've not read in my house, and I need to read those before I add more.
I mean, this might sound bad, but I always feel awkward when like self-pub authors like hit me up to like give me their books. Like, don't get me wrong, I would love free books. Like, I mean, I've gotten some free books. Like, I got
Yeah.
like Mike Molman gave me his books in these really beautiful, really beautiful packages, and he literally like wax stamped them, like, and yeah, it was great. But yeah, I don't know if I could read them all.
Yeah, it's tough. It's tough. So, I just, when I take them, I always say, like, I'll get to it, but I can't promise when. But then it's also tough when you get a self-pub work. Like, I have one that I finished recently that, I gave it a 2 out of 5, and I'm not one of those reviewers that's going to put the kid gloves on just because it's a self-pub author. And I feel bad that, the author sent me the book and I read it and I gave it a bad review,
Yeah,
but
no,
I
it's
have to
like
be honest,
it kind of feels like you're like kicking a dog or something. I mean, I've
it's
never
just,
kicked a dog. I don't plan on doing that, but like,
but I think with anything, I just like, I haven't done it on video yet because it'll be part of my March wrap up, but, I'll do it respectfully and I'll talk about the things that didn't work for me and why I did not like the book. And, I generally try to always say, when I give a bad book review, a negative book review, I should say, hopefully it's not a bad review. When I give a negative book review that, this wasn't for me, that doesn't mean that somebody else isn't going to love it and that they're not right and their experience is somehow invalidated by mine. But, you just feel bad when, the authors they're just, it's their passion and they're just trying to sell their books and they just want people to read them, and feel bad about giving a 2 out of 5, but it is what it was. It was, for my rating scale, it was a solid 2 out of 5, unfortunately.
yeah, I mean, I don't mean to. But yeah, I hear you. It's kind of weird. It's, um,
Especially the ones that are more like active in the community, because there
yeah,
are a lot of self-published authors that are very active. But yeah, even when, like, I was glad that I loved his books, Philip Chase's books. But even when I reviewed his books, I tried to be objective and just, like, I didn't call him Philip in those reviews. I called him, just like any other author that I wouldn't call by the first name. I tried to be very objective with it, and I think I was. And I didn't. I mean, only one of the 5 books got a 5-star from me because I felt like I was honest. But still love the series overall. But yeah, it's a fine line, and then there's obviously there's the big discussions going on right now with reviewer spaces and things like that. But
yeah. I'm like,
yeah,
I don't want to get into that because that's
yeah, I stay away from that drama too. Yeah, it's easy to just scroll past that post. Yeah, I don't want
But, kind of going back to I tangent a lot, but we were talking about literary merit and how that works. I mean, I like noir a lot, and it's kind of a weird thing with noir because it's kind of accepted, but it's kind of not. It's kind of weird.
yeah.
Like, Graham Greene is pretty well known, and I think Brighton Rock is one of the best noirs I've ever read. So,
Yeah. I
also,
read A Gun for Hire. Was that Graham Greene?
I'm not sure. I've only
Think
read Brighton
so.
Rock from him, so I could be.
Um,
I don't
but
know.
I think there's also, I think even within any genre, you just have those authors that can just elevate it to the next level
No,
and
there's
have a lot more depth. Especially thematic depth is what generally the literary types are going to discuss. So if you have a noir that has deeper themes than just kind of the superficial formulaic story, certainly they're going to take note of that.
I think there's some who like should be appreciated, like Lahane, for instance. I mean, I don't really know what Lahane's like status is, but I think he
Yeah,
should get some more love.
I think he's one of those that if you know Lahane, you know how good he is. But he's not as widespread as I think he could be or should be, frankly, because I think he's a beautiful writer.
Oh yeah.
And he does. I think he writes more than just crime fiction. I mean, that the series I read, that the three books. I mean, one of them was straight up historical fiction, and the other two were more crime fiction oriented. But I think he's just got a lot of depth, and he is a beautiful writer, and more people should read him.
I mean, I guess one of my favorite things about Lahane, I like how he just cuts the point of the matter, in a way, and
Yeah,
he like
yeah,
draws out the emotion of the scene. I
yeah,
guess.
and he doesn't have. There's no fat in his books, but
Yeah.
he's also able to write beautifully, not simply.
Uh huh.
I think sometimes authors they sacrifice being able to write a beautiful sentence for being succinct and
Mm-hmm.
clear. And I think that Lahane's definitely he's not of that type. He may not have a lot of fluff in there, but he still can string together a paragraph that's just beautifully written.
Yeah, like I like how he draws out the emotion. Like it's like it's like music. Like it's like listening to a really great song, or like
Yeah, yeah,
or like listening to like a great instrumental. I guess it's the only way I could. I mean, I'm sure you can relate to this. I'm sure you can
yeah,
describe it a lot better than me.
yeah. No, Lahane should definitely be on everybody's lips.
I know. I'm always trying to get people to read him. He's like, "Well, where should you start?" And I'm like, "Ah, man."
I'll give it a few months. I'll have that video.
Because it's like you could kind of start anywhere, really. I mean,
You can. Yeah,
kind
you really can. In fact, I don't remember where I started. And I know for a fact that I read the six Kenzie and Gennaro novels 100% out of order except for the last one. I read them like 4, 2, 1, 5, 3, 6, or some crazy order like that because I didn't know any better. And it was fine.
yeah,
They
they're
still
mostly
all stand
standalone.
alone. I mean, you realize that the characters are in different parts of their life and the people around them, reading them out of order, but it didn't lessen my enjoyment of them. I mean, I would say the only thing of those books is you can't read the last one first, because it kind of is a conclusion to their story, almost like a
Spoils it,
coda.
even though it
Um,
kind
but yeah. So I mean, with Lahane, yeah, you could start anywhere.
of. Yeah, that's the hard part because like people are like, "Well, where should you start with Lahane?" I'm like, "Well, you could kind of start anywhere, really, if you wanted."
You really can.
I mean,
Um,
would I recommend Mystic River first? Probably not, but you could start there if you wanted to.
you could, yeah, you could, absolutely,
I mean, I wouldn't say start there first, but you could if you wanted to. It's weird. I am
yeah.
looking forward to that video now that you bring that up. I want to see what you have to
I'm
say
excited
about
to
that.
do it. It's one of I have like two long form videos planned this year that I know will take a little longer, so I'll do them at some point in the summer when I have more time to get it together. But that's one I really wanted to do after I read the three, the Given Day, Live by Night, and World Gone By. When I read those in January, I just said I need to spotlight Lahane a little bit. So
Yeah, I'm hoping to
yeah, I'm
start.
excited to go through and just kind of review like my old Goodreads reviews and everything of the other books that I'd read, and just kind of reminisce and go through all of them, and just give a good reading advice for people. So
Yeah, and another good writer in that Lahane caveat. I read Michael Coriata last year, a book called The Prophet.
hmm.
Um,
Oh, I've read him. Yeah, I read a lot of his. He has some good horror too.
oh, I haven't read his.
Um,
I've only read The Prophet. That was
yeah,
a
he's got some crime
fantastic
fiction. He's got
book.
some horror. Yeah, I bet I read 6 or 8 of his. I found him because Stephen King recommended one of his books, and
Mm.
yeah, I liked him.
Yeah, I really liked. It surprised me because I mean, I didn't like. I thought I would like the Prophet, but I wasn't expecting like to get blown away, in the same way I
Yeah,
was when I read like a Mystic River. You know,
yeah, yeah,
it's like, oh man, this is great. It's nice when
yeah,
books sneak up on you sometimes.
yeah. No, he's talented for sure.
Um, and also like going back to the noir series, I mean, it's kind of nice that most of them are standalone-y. So like, because there's some of them that are like,
Hmm.
oh man, like it's some of them like 50 books long. I'm like, oh man.
Yeah.
But like they're standalone, so I'm like, okay, I can kind of
Yeah.
dip in and out when I want.
Well, that's like my go-to crime fiction guy is Michael Connolly, and he's over 40 books at this point, and
I don't know where to
like
start
30 of
with
them,
Connolly
30 of them have
because
Harry Bosch, but it doesn't matter. You can pick up any of them because they all stand alone.
yeah, he's
And
another one I don't know where to start because I'm like, man,
yeah, with
throw me
Connolly,
in.
actually, you can literally start anywhere because he is the most consistent. Like I said, Lahane's got a bad book. Connolly doesn't have a bad book.
Hmm.
Connolly's got over 40 books. He hasn't written a bad one yet. Um, so it's one of those like read the back flap. If it sounds good, that's where you start.
All right, because like I know he has like a bunch of Bosch, but and I know some of them
Yeah,
like intersect.
they
Like
do.
I think
Yeah,
him and the
so he
Lincoln
does
Lawyer are like brothers.
like pretty much. Yeah, all of his books are in the same shared, you know, Los Angeles universe, basically. So they do intersect, and there are some of the later books where you do have Harry Bosch and the Lincoln Lawyer in the books together.
Aren't they
Um,
like brothers?
yeah, they're half brothers,
Oh, yeah.
and but yeah, but even so, you could even jump into one of those. But yeah, he's Mr. Consistent. Probably, I don't know. Him and Abercrombie are probably the only two authors that I've read extensively that haven't written a bad book. But Connolly's over 40.
Oh man.
Abercrombie's at like 13. So
Now I don't know if I told you this last time we had a chat, or if I mean I know I've said it before, but I would if I ever talk to Joe Abercrombie, which is a very slim chance, but if I would love to ask him if he ever would be interested in writing a noir or a crime book because I think he would be very good at it.
I agree. Yeah, I never thought of that, but yeah, as soon as you said that, I agree. He would be fantastic at that.
I mean, I don't know. I mean, maybe like I know he's doing a like weird I know he's doing a new fantasy book, but like that would be really interesting to see if he would do
Yeah,
that.
he could pull it off because he's good at that kind of stylized prose writing style, and
Yeah, he
he
has a
could do
hard
that.
boiled voice down really well.
Yeah, he could do that really, really well if he wanted to.
Yeah, no, I would read a Joe Abercrombie crime book for sure.
I'll read a Joe Abercrombie anything book. He's a favorite. I think he was in my top 5 when I did my favorite authors list. So
Yeah, I mean, he actually put out a video recently. I saw he did. You got Moorcock and even Steinbeck on there. I don't know what you.
yeah, that was that. Yeah, that one came out this morning. Yeah, yeah, that was my February. I don't call them wrap ups, even though they're wrap ups. I just call them what they are. They're short book reviews. So I guess I'm literal in that sense.
Yeah, I
But
call mine what I read because like
there you go.
I even say it in the video. I'm like, it's a wrap up, but I don't want to call it a wrap up
Yeah,
for whatever. I mean, I'm not against people calling them wrap ups. Do whatever you
yeah,
want. I'm not
same.
breaking the wheel here, but
Yeah, same. I just like to highlight the books. At least on the thumbnail, 4 of however many books I read in a month. Like here are some of the books I'm read. I mean, last month I only read 5, but so 4 of them got on the thumbnail.
you read Moorcock. Which Moorcock did you read? Did you read Elric?
I finished the second omnibus, so I read Stormbringer.
Oh yeah, I heard they put
And
out new Elric.
there's 3 omnibus editions that have 11 novels, and then he wrote a new one like in the last year or 2 or something
Mm.
like that. But early Moorcock's better than late Moorcock in my mind. So
Yeah, I think
I don't know if I'll get the newest one. I do have the third omnibus, which is kind of a standalone trilogy, separate of like what goes on in the first 2
mm-hmm.
things. I don't know, because there's this whole multiverse thing going on, and I don't know. At some point, I heard something about Elric fighting Nazis or something. So
Yeah, I mean,
Like, I have no idea what's going to go on in this trilogy of
yeah,
this third
Moorcock
omnibus.
really. Yeah, I've noticed. I mean, I haven't read a lot. I've only read Elric, and I read one of his books called The Whispering Swarm, which
Yeah.
I thought was a which I didn't really care for, but I thought was interesting. Um, but Elric, um, yeah, he tends to really he really takes that multiverse concept and just really goes
Yeah.
for it.
Well, but I mean, I can't say he invented it, but he was doing it a lot earlier than most.
Yeah, that's what I've heard. That's about
Because
what
I
I've
mean,
heard.
Stormbringer was written in the '60s, and you know, I think Sailor and the Seas of Fate was in the '70s, and that had multiverse. Some of the characters from his other things. So I mean, he's been doing it a long
Yeah, and then
time.
he's like at the like Elric fighting Nazis. I'm like,
Yeah, that's I haven't gotten to those yet, so we'll see how that lands. But from what I've heard, is the third omnibus is kind of like a standalone trilogy. So I'm going to read those together at some point. The eight that I read in those first two omnibus, I spread them out over, I don't know, about a year and a half.
I'll give him. He is one of the most imaginative fantasy writers I've read.
Absolutely, and I love the character itself.
He's gone
Is
into some wacky. He's gone in some really interesting directions
it's
with his imagination. Is all I
it's
gotta
a
say.
it's a really dark character for a work of classic fantasy. I mean, he's an anti-hero, and that was not what was being written in the '60s and '70s. So he's definitely influential. I mean, Abercrombie, I'm sure, read Elric.
Oh, I wouldn't be shocked if he did. 'Cause,
Well, and
um,
obviously The Witcher. I mean, they even made The Witcher look like him. So,
they even call him the White Wolf, just like
right?
Elric. So I mean, I'd not be shocked if I've only read the first short story collection of The Witcher. I need
Quit while you're ahead.
Did you read them and they just got bad?
I read. Let me look. So I read the two first. I read the two short story collections.
Uh.
I can recommend both of those. And then the three novels. I think they're lousy. Yeah, I didn't continue past
Oh
that.
no! I also have
Um,
the Tower of Fools by the same author.
yeah, I find the author's very lazy with character.
Oh.
When he writes a character like Geralt and some of the others, they're fully fleshed out and they're awesome. And then some of the other characters are just totally cookie cutter, two dimensional. The storytelling is really just the world building is just it's fuzzy. It's not clear. Like when you read some of these great world builders, Guy Gabriel Kay, Robin Hobb, Abercrombie, Sanderson, Sapkowitz is not that. So Sapkowski. Sorry, I don't want to say his name wrong, even though I'm talking ill of his work. Um,
He
yeah,
seems
I
kind
was
of
I was not a
grumpy, to be
fan of
honest.
those.
I've seen like
They're
interviews. I've seen interviews of him, and he's always kind of like, eh.
yeah. I don't know. I wish I remember who it is because I'd love to give them credit, but they said that okay, The Witcher video game is the best storytelling, followed by the short stories, followed by the television show, and then followed by the novels.
Hmm.
And from what I've seen, I wish I knew who said that because I want to give them credit every time I say it because I think they're right.
Yeah, I still have yet to read the because again, there's so much fantasy. I mean, I read
Yeah.
Sinlin
The short
Ascent.
stories the short stories are great. I really like those. So, I mean, I don't want to dissuade you from those, but
Oh yeah, no,
yeah, I
I'm
found the novels just lousy.
I got them over there. I'm hoping to read the second collection at some point. I mean, I read
Yeah.
Sinlin Ascends last month. I liked
How
it.
was that? I haven't read those.
It's definitely I liked it.
That's on the more literary side, I think.
It's I don't know about that, but I thought it was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
It's definitely more unique than other fantasies you'll read.
Yeah, and I think the unique ones are usually the divisive ones because I have seen a lot of people like it and a lot of people don't.
Yeah, like Alan loves it. I
Oh,
liked
does
it.
he? Yeah. I know
Um,
Philip Chase loved it.
mm,
But yeah, I've seen a lot of people, especially didn't like the last book, I guess.
Oh yeah, yeah. I'm hoping to read the other books at some point during the year. I don't know when I'm gonna do that though,
Yeah,
because time is a flat circle at the end of
the
the day.
struggle is real.
Yeah, it's just oh man, I have Jerusalem by Alan Moore looking at me right now, and that
Oh,
book's a
nice.
behemoth.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to, yeah, I'm gonna have to try that at some point.
Someone was on the Discord talking about Watchmen today.
Oh yeah, yeah, that's a great
That's
comment.
classic. Yeah.
It's also tough as well because I have comics I want to read as well, so it's just like
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
impossible. I'm gonna be an old man. It's still gonna be ridiculous.
Yeah. It's just you try to prioritize as best you can and go from there.
Yeah, I mean, I remember I shared my Goodreads once, and they're like, "Dude, your to be read is ridiculous." And I'm like, "Yeah."
Yep.
I'm like, "Yeah, it is."
It is.
what do I got? I got nothing else to say there. It's just, I mean, well, what Steinbeck did you read? Because I like.
This was my 10th Steinbeck.
Oh,
He's a favorite. I read To a God Unknown, which was his second novel,
mm,
and I wouldn't recommend it as like the entry point. I think the big classic ones are definitely you should read those first. But if you're like me and you love Steinbeck, I mean, it's certainly worth your time. I mean, I haven't really read a bad one yet. There are a couple that were not as good, but I mean, he's my favorite classic author. If classics. But I think he was fifth on my top 10 author list.
um,
He's up there. He was definitely in my top 10. He's a favorite.
I'm curious what you think of Grapes of Wrath if you've read that, because like that was one I read when I was younger. I don't know if I got it.
Yeah, I loved it. East of Eden's my favorite by him,
Same here.
but
Yeah, that and the
I mean, I
Mice
love
Men.
Grapes of Wrath. I didn't love the kind of open-ended ending, but I understood why he did that. But I mean, just his portrayal of those characters in such tough situations. I mean, it's just he's so masterful, and
Hmm.
I mean, there's not many authors have done that better, if there's any authors that have done that better. And I find him, I think he strikes the perfect balance of being a beautiful writer while also still writing clear, you know.
Hmm. Yeah.
It's not like some of those flowery writers that we've all had to endure. Usually in school when someone forced us to read something, it's not like the prose is slightly purple, but it's still clear storytelling. So
Hmm.
I think he strikes just a perfect balance for me and what I like. That he's a beautiful writer, but he's not just there's still the depth and there's still the great storytelling within.
It's funny. I always feel dry when I when I read his like. I always feel like I get this dry taste in my mouth when I read his books.
Well, that's the Dust Bowl of Grapes of Wrath. That's why.
Yeah, that's probably why. Well, I guess I also really like stories about dysfunctional families. So I mean, he
He's
wrote
good at
about
that.
that. I mean, East of
but he's
Eden is all
also
about that.
but he's also just so good at just the everyman. His characters are so relatable and so just human, and I think he just has a knack for that. Even in this book, it was his second book, and you could tell he had a knack for this main character who was just kind of the everyman trying to survive and dealing with the strife that he had to deal with in this book. But yeah, I do enjoy Steinbeck tremendously.
Like I've thought about rereading Grapes of Wrath because like I thought it was kind of dry, no pun intended.
Yeah.
Uh, I thought it was just kind of like, huh? Like I don't know if it was one of those I may have been too young to read it, and I sometimes feel like that's a cop
True.
out, but there are some books I think that's true, and I think Grapes of Wrath might be one of those books.
No, that's absolutely true. No, I think a lot of times life experience will play into our enjoyment of a book, because I know there's a lot of books like if I had read Guy Gabriel Kay as an 18-year-old, I wouldn't have connected with him as I do as a 49-year-old.
Yeah.
Um, so I'm sure that there's certain authors. that are like that, and vice versa. You know, there's certain authors that I read as a kid that I've reread and think, okay, yeah, I see why I liked it as a kid, but as an adult, you know, this is
Yeah, but
not
like,
my thing anymore. You
but
know,
it's interesting because like I love East of Eden, and I love Of Mice and Men because I've only read
yeah,
3 Steinbeck at least so far.
yeah,
I want to read more, but you know,
yeah,
as we've repeatedly noted,
yeah.
it's it's a tough world out there. it's
Well,
there's so many
luckily, I mean,
books.
East of Eden, and at least of well, the 10 I've read, East of Eden and Grapes of Wrath are the only chunky ones.
Yeah,
Everything else is like 200 pages, so there's at least that.
I remember a lot of people read the Pearl when I was in high
Yeah,
school. That was
that
I've
one's great.
never
That was like 100 pages.
I've
Yeah,
never
that's a
read that one. I want to though.
that one's great. That one's very memorable.
Um, but I love Of Mice and Men a lot. That's just
Yeah, absolutely.
that's the real tearjerker. I'm like, this guy's
It is.
great.
It is. So well done. Yeah.
um, but yeah, like it's weird that I like. Well, I guess it's not weird because, like I mentioned earlier, I like religion. Like I like thinking about religion. Like I'm really fascinated by it, and East
Hmm.
of Eden deals with religion a lot.
Yeah.
And also dysfunctional I like family sagas, I guess.
Yeah, and that one's got it all.
Oh yeah, I mean it's actually I wrote a review for it a while back, but I hate it. I think I could have done better. It's one of those books that's hard to describe.
Yeah, just because there's so much there, and the allegory with Garden of Eden and everything, and yeah, there's a lot there.
Yeah, it's a but yeah, I think it's one of those transcendent reads. At least it was to me.
Yeah, no, I agree.
I know there's some people who thought it was boring, and I'm like,
No, they're wrong.
I wasn't gonna say that, but I like that.
You're entitled to your opinion even when it's wrong.
Yeah. I think isn't that from like a movie or something?
I don't know, but
I
I
heard
like
that
it.
somewhere. It's like I've heard that you're entitled to your opinion, even when it's wrong, and the guy just
Yep.
starts fighting him or something like that. I don't remember exactly, but it's funny. It was kind of. I remember All the Pretty Horses was kind of Steinbeckian a little bit, just grimmer. 'Cause,
Yeah.
McCarthy is not someone you read when you want to have a good time. I mean,
No,
Steinbeck
no.
isn't either. I mean, I mean,
No, he isn't either. No,
um,
because they both deal with trauma for sure.
but yeah, I might read Grapes of Wrath again. That's another one I need to reread at some point. See how it holds up. See if I'm compelled, if you
Yeah,
will.
yeah. Different experience,
Because
later in life, I'm sure.
I was one of those precocious kids in school. I liked reading the classics for some reason. So I
Hmm.
read like Steinbeck and Conrad, and I remember reading Catch 22. I don't remember a lot
Yeah,
about it, but I remember reading
yeah.
it.
That's a
Uh,
fun one.
um, yeah, I read The Great Gatsby, which I love. It's actually one I want to cover at some point. I might cover that soon. Anyway, I'm getting off topic. Bunch of classics, we'll say, and yeah, that's one of those I haven't gotten to. Again, there's so much. It's not fair.
It's infuriating. Yeah.
Ah. I bet you've had your moments where you're just like, that was great. And now there's dozens more.
Yep,
You just
absolutely.
yell at the sky like, nah. Ah. Oh man, it's frustrating. I don't know. It's something. Well, is there anything you have in the future that you want to do? Aside from the Lahane video you were telling me about earlier.
I have another long form Stephen King video in the works. That's going to take a while too. Hopefully this summer I get both of those out. But no, the next video on my channel is I edited it this morning. My birthday's coming up. I'm turning 50. So I put together a video of my favorite book every year of my life. So 50 years, 50 books. And I just go through it it's not a real long video. It's only like 6 minutes, but It was so much fun to put together.
Wow, that
Just go through like, went through the bookshelf and just pulled out every book I loved and wrote down the year. And then I went through my Goodreads, and then I went through my Kindle, and I'm sure I still missed some great books, but it was a lot of fun until I had to make the decisions, because one of the years, I forget which year, it was like 2000 or something. There were literally 9 books I loved, and I had to pick just one.
yeah.
So, some of the years was pretty easy. There was just like one or two I had to choose from, but some of the years it was like 6, 7, 8, 9 books I had to choose. So that's coming out. I have that set to drop. I don't know, in about a week. I forget which day I scheduled it for, but
So
yeah,
6
birthday's at the end of the
minutes?
month, so it's
Wow.
kind of a birthday video.
6 minutes? How'd you do that?
It was just a lot of quick editing where it's like 1974, this book by this author, 1975, and it just, I kept the camera in place and then just chopped it all up. So,
Oh, okay. I'm
um,
like, man.
yeah, so I don't talk about any of them. I just simply lay them out.
Oh, I was about to
So,
say, if I did that video, it would be like an hour.
yeah, no, originally I was like, oh, maybe I'll talk 30 seconds about each one. And I said, no, I'm just going to here's what they are.
All right, and you'll like explain it when people comment asking why.
Yeah, yeah, if anyone's curious. But it's also, the only thing it doesn't have, I mean, it's a great cross section of what I
Is
love.
is Steinbeck in there?
Yeah, it doesn't have any Steinbeck, it doesn't have any classic authors. I was
Oh,
born in 74, so any authors before that, it just, they're gonna be there. So but besides that, it's a really good cross section of everything I love. I mean, there's you got some Connolly, you got some Lehane, you got some Stephen King, Robin Hobb, Joe Abercrombie. I mean, like all my favorite authors are represented. A lot of them, the more favorite authors, multiple times, and it's a good mix of, be a really good spread of the different genres I read too. So, yeah, it was a fun video to put together for sure.
so wait, so there's no Steinbeck on there at all?
No Steinbeck, no.
Oh,
Well,
man.
most of his stuff was earlier than that. So,
Oh, so wait a minute. So was this like? So did you make it like books that came out that year?
no, the book, yeah, a book for every year that I've been alive.
So
So,
did it come out that year that you were that you're talking about?
yeah, so basically, like any book that the year it was published, so from 74 to 2024.
Oh, okay. But wait,
So,
was it like a 74 book in 74, or did you play it more loosely?
no, it was just copyright date,
Oh, okay.
100%. Yeah.
All right. All right then. Well, we've been going on for a while. I didn't want to take too much more of your time, but I'm glad we managed to get together again. This was fun.
Yeah, this was a lot of fun. I enjoyed it.
If you have, well, if you have your social media, feel free to share them for anyone who's interested. For like the 5 people who might not know who you are.
Yeah, just go to Red Fury Books. All of it's in there. I'm on Twitter as well, Fireside Discord. I have a Goodreads as well. So, if you go to my channel, you can find all that kind of stuff.
Great. Well, thank you for joining me again, Josh. And this did go very smoothly, so I'm glad that worked.
Yes, no
Yes.
tech issues this time. That was
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah.
Success.
Yes.
Thanks again for having me. I appreciate it.
All right. Well, you take care of yourself, Josh, and hopefully everyone enjoyed this. So until next time.